By now, you've likely seen clips of footage coming out of Evergreen State College, a small public liberal arts college in Olympia, Washington. I'm not breaking any news there, and on the surface, this story looks a lot like the familiar campus craziness we've observed frequently over the last few years. Students yelling at school staff disrespectfully.
You called for a man who was being harassed or threatened. Why the fuck is he here?
Roaming mobs with recycled chants as unoriginal as they are ineffective. Group delusions that a posh suburban campus is some type of racial war zone.
Whiteness is the most violent fucking system to ever breathe!
But there are a few aspects that make what's happening at Evergreen unique. The details of this case are something that every college student should view, that every college parent should view, that every college staff member should view. Because this is a case that illustrates what happens when campus social justice activism goes unchallenged, and what happens when you have school leadership unwilling to challenge it. Or in this case, even worse, when you have a college administration caving to its every whim. Evergreen is a case study for what happens when we treat this toxic ideology with passivity, and the outcome isn't pretty. So I've done my best to assemble the full timeline of what's happened at Evergreen so that we can piece the clips together in their context and really understand what I believe is an important story. Biology professor Brett Weinstein has become the most famous face for Evergreen, trapped by a mob outside his classroom and subjected to a campaign to fire him. For now, he's just been bullied off of campus. But Weinstein is just one piece in this bizarre cult crusade. The story begins earlier than that. I aim to tell the story chronologically, but there's so much nonsense happening so quickly, I may inadvertently mix a few items up. So bear with me. The perceived racial injustice at Evergreen peaked earlier this month when there was an ongoing conflict between students on Facebook, two of whom, Jamil and Tamiko, were advocating making a particular course majority brown or black. Though it should be noted they weren't trying to ban white people, just get more people of color into the class. That wasn't appreciated by another student, Kai Ave, who said such advocacy wouldn't be acceptable from a white perspective. The students' online conflict led to an in-person meeting. Kai Ave claims to have been threatened and harassed by Tamiko, and so both Jamil and Tamiko were summoned by campus police for questioning. And not arrested, mind you. Just questioned. Now, who was the aggressor in that situation? Your guess is as good as mine. But that incident was enough for students to start protesting campus police and Police Chief Stacy Brown, claiming that black trans disabled students are actively being sought out and confronted by campus police constantly, and police are refusing to explain their actions and harassment. Well, that's quite the claim, isn't it? Not necessarily the claim that police are targeting black trans disabled students, but the claim that there are black trans disabled students for them to target. How could there even be enough of them for this problem to be real? I did the math. There are 199 black students at Evergreen, and roughly 10% of the student body reports a disability overall. So let's say there are 20 disabled black students at the school. Nationally, about 0.6% of the population identifies as transgender. So based on these numbers at Evergreen, we would expect about 1/10 of a black trans disabled student to exist. That is a very rare Pokemon. But we know there's at least one for these police to try to catch. And it's Jamil Zerself, the same person questioned by police upon allegations of harassment. And Jamil fits the description. Black, trans, and clearly mentally disabled.
Evergreen and most institutions are built on a racist model, and Evergreen claims to not be part of that process and has done very damaging things to its students of color, particularly its black students. And so we are here demonstrating taking student control over an institution that we're paying to be at to make sure that our needs are being met.
Note that language. Taking student control. It's a characterization repeated by Professor Brett Weinstein, who's been famously targeted in the rise of this racialized cult on campus. So how is he a part of this story? Well, he objected to being forced to leave campus on account of his race. So basically, he's a huge racist. Since the 70s, Evergreen has hosted events called Day of Absence and Day of Presence. Normally on Day of Absence, people of color voluntarily leave the campus with the intent of having their absence show how much their presence means. But this year, the Office of First Peoples Multicultural Advising Services decided that format should be reversed. And instead, white people should be highly encouraged to leave campus on Wednesday, April 12th, to be indoctrinated with the guilt of their ancestors' transgressions at an off-campus site. Professor Weinstein is, understandably, not a fan of that arrangement. So he sent an email to the Multicultural Office noting, quote, "There is a huge difference between a group or coalition deciding to voluntarily absent themselves from a shared space in order to highlight their vital and underappreciated roles, and a group or coalition encouraging another group to go away. The first is a forceful call to consciousness, which is, of course, crippling to the logic of oppression. The second is a show of force, an act of oppression in and of itself." Professor Weinstein says you may take this letter as a formal protest of this year's structure, and you may assume I will be on campus on Day of Absence. On a college campus, one's right to speak or to be must never be based on skin color. But that was an email from mid-March about an event in mid-April. Why is there concern now? Since racial rage is all the rage in light of campus police targeting black trans disabled students, might as well collect Professor Weinstein's scalp too. So a group of students disrupted his class on Tuesday, May 24th, insisting he resign or be fired for his racist email. Professor Weinstein was much more gracious than most might be upon such a disruption, expressing genuine interest in hearing the perspective of the mob, but still being shut down for his apparent racism.
I'm interested only in dialectic, which does mean I listen to you and you listen to me.
We don't care what terms you want to speak on. This is not about you.
I'm talking all about him.
On terms of white privilege. This is not a discussion. You have lost that one.
You said some racist shit. Can you
I did
apologize?
not. I did not. Okay. First of all, Day of Absence has been here longer than I have. I have never protested it until the idea. Until no. First of all, I didn't say. Would you like to hear the answer or not?
No!
Because of this disruption, campus police were called to the building, which further enraged the mob because of prior tension with the campus police force. The police spoke with the mob, but did not disperse it. How does an unruly mob have free rein to disrupt academic business on a college campus? Well, that only happens if the mob is in control. And according to Professor Weinstein, and just like Jamil said earlier, that is exactly the case here.
Dr. Bridges is allowing this mob to effectively control the campus, and they have been in control since 9:30 on Tuesday morning.
That sounds like an extraordinary claim, but it's no exaggeration. Professor Weinstein has had to move his classes off campus because campus police cannot guarantee his safety.
2 days of protests proved to be enough for Brett Weinstein, who took his biology class off campus to a downtown Olympia park.
I have been told by the chief of police that it is not safe for me to be on campus.
And the reason campus police cannot guarantee his safety is because they've been instructed not to.
He has also told the police to stand down. So although the campus police have a sense of what it is that needs to happen in a circumstance like this, they have been hobbled by the fact that they answer to the college administration.
And so this display of absurdity you've witnessed thus far is perpetuated because there's an enabler in the college president's office. When this mob says bend over, college president George Bridges says how low, before spitting in his hand and apologizing for using space that should be reserved for voices of color. Sometime after confronting Professor Weinstein, the mob stormed the office of the president and in needlessly disrespectful fashion demanded a meeting with him to take place that afternoon, a demand that he granted.
Excuse me?
Get the camera on her.
No, fuck you, George. We don't want to hear a goddamn thing you have to say. You
Then
talk
I
so
think
fucking
then
much.
you're
No, you
asking
shut
me-
the fuck up.
And it's at this meeting that we can see the unbelievable submission of college president George Bridges. He takes the podium after Jamil outlines the rules and describes his shakes of rage.
So I'm going to get off because I'm shaking, but I want to clarify that George is claiming that he needs to leave by 5:30, so we need to make sure that we're being really concise and getting our shit said, and you can say this as emotionally, as angrily, as passionately as you need to.
Bridges gave a statement not demanding order, not demanding respect, but committing to appeasing their whims.
And I want to affirm the fact that students are raising their voices and expressing their frustrations, their anger about the lived experience they have here on this campus. It must change. And I will commit all that I can to making a change.
But that's not good enough. The mob says he must disavow white supremacism.
The whole solution for something that you can do right now, and that is to disavow white supremacy.
I will do everything in my power to ensure that you are safe. Recognizing that I can't protect everyone and that I will disavow all white supremacy.
The mob asks what he's doing to protect them, and he says he's here and he's listening, but that's not good enough.
What are you doing right now to protect us?
I'm listening to you, I'm taking your recommendations.
That's not how you protect somebody that's in danger. That's not what you do. Because guess what? What y'all do when white people are in danger is y'all call Olympia Police Department to campus. That's what y'all do.
Tell you what, we'll put you in a nice padded room, locked down to the highest security standards. That sounds like a win for everybody. But poor George, he can't get out of his own way, accidentally promising to train the campus police to be anti-black.
I will go to work on ensuring that our police, our staff, our faculty are as well trained and as anti-black, anti-biased trained.
And the mob eats it up. But don't worry, you can count on George to admit to his own thought crime, accidental, imaginary, or otherwise.
I will commit to dealing with my own shit, my own racism, and I am a work in progress.
But even though you've conceded everything, George, still, fuck you. And the police too.
Fuck you and fuck the police!
You're so full of shit, George.
Okay, George, so first and foremost, you're so fucking full of shit.
And stop targeting trannies. Though you are really good at it.
You have the fucking nerve to fucking dehumanize like R and me have you. What's in this whole...
And like, mostly all the trannies too!
Fuck yes, yeah.
Since the teacher's really good at targeting trannies.
What the hell am I even watching? There is one moment where George gets just a little courage. As the meeting gets unruly, he threatens to close it down. But the mob quickly puts him in his place.
Hold on. We're going to have to adjourn the meeting. We're going to adjourn the meeting.
I have a fucking right to live! I come into school! You do this bullshit, you're just gonna adjourn it? Cause what, you can? Every one of us gotta stay here! This is my skin color! I can't adjourn this shit!
Amen.
You can't adjourn your skin color, but you can adjourn your future employment prospects. So enjoy bossing George around, because that's the only boss you'll ever be. After that meeting, the next day, on Wednesday, May 24th, students occupied the library in protest, as well as the president's office, to give George a formal list of demands. And in the process of delivering their written demands, they gave a few more out loud, like no homework while protest is ongoing.
All of
of us are students and have homework and projects and things due.
I know.
Have you sent an email out to our faculty letting them know?
That is the first thing I'll do. I have not done it yet.
So they need to be told that these assignments won't be done on time. And we don't need to be penalized for that.
Within this occupation, George again has a little moment where he sticks up for himself and the anxiety he has due to claustrophobia. But we've seen what happens when George tries to stick up for himself.
I need some privacy, folks. I'm sorry. I have claustrophobia.
Oh, okay. Oh, we do blocking America. And we endure hate crimes on your campus and we pay to be here for.
Students of color have to work in threatening environments every day.
Come on, baby.
Welcome. Get to work.
While you're at it, George, this pizza you bought us is pretty good. But still, fuck you for that. And you better submit to our demands by Friday. And give us a potluck too.
So by Friday, if all those are met, you need to pay for a potluck.
Pay for a potluck anyway.
And don't forget the gumbo.
Okay, we want gumbo.
We want gumbo. Made by my mama.
Oh, and, fuck you. Now, it's either that George has no backbone whatsoever, or maybe he just really had to pee and wanted to get rid of them. Or maybe both, because if you believe Professor Weinstein, the mob wouldn't even allow him to use the bathroom alone.
The protesters, or some of the leaders of the protest, have corralled the president. I think he's essentially literally a prisoner. My understanding is he wasn't even allowed to go to the bathroom alone.
But it looks like George at least got a pee break on Thursday. And I don't know if you remembered the gumbo, but there was food at this meeting. But the purpose for Friday's meeting was for George to give a speech conceding to the mob's demands. After George got through his preferred pronoun formalities.
So let me begin by saying my name is George Bridges. I'm the 6th president of Evergreen State College. I use he, him pronouns.
And apologizing to Native Americans whose land was stolen long before George had anything to do with anything.
I begin our time together today by acknowledging the indigenous people of the Medicine Creek Treaty, whose land was stolen and on which the college now stands. In response to the Native Student Alliance requests, I commit in the future to opening every Evergreen event with this acknowledgement.
And of course, congratulating the students on their remarkable courage to stand up to big, scary gumbo and pizza providing white guys like him.
I want to compliment the students here today, the students of Evergreen College or State College, for your courage. For your courage in voicing concerns that are difficult to raise. That are difficult to raise in any environment, but particularly the college campus that is predominantly white.
After all that, George gave a speech accepting almost every mob demand, with the exceptions of demands for disarming the campus police and demands for a few firings, including Professor Weinstein, neither of which George has the unilateral authority to do, which he explains thoroughly. And he closes with more words of praise.
And finally, let me reiterate my gratitude and the gratitude of the leaders who are here throughout the room for the passion and courage you exhibited these past many weeks.
And this is where the irony becomes painfully apparent. If you weren't already in pain by making it this far through the video. You would think that meeting the mob's demands to the maximum extent within his power would get George a pat on the back. You would think it would earn him a, "Hey, thanks, George. You really did us a big favor." Nope. Instead, George conceding to their demands earns him, you guessed it, more demands. Hey, George, when are you going to get going on those Native American demands?
When will the Native American demands be met?
Oh, sorry, I was under siege from the black disabled trannies this week, but you're welcome to besiege me next week.
I begin work on those next week, and I can imagine that we would meet in a week and see how much progress we've made on what we can do right away.
And George, 95% of what we wanted isn't really good enough. You're still going to have to disarm those cops so that we can continue our coup uninterrupted.
We also asked in our demands that police services sell all of their lethal weapons, and that was not addressed, and I would like to hear what you think about that.
They will not go into those conditions unarmed. And so I have no plan to disarm the police at this juncture. They given their responsibilities, they have to have firearms. Now,
yeah. Boo! Boo! Police protection! Boo! But also, there are a lot of off-campus hate groups, George. What are you going to do to protect us from them?
What does the school do to protect the students from off-campus hate groups?
What are we doing to protect our students from off-campus threats? Well, first and foremost, we are arming our police officers, which you just booed 5 minutes ago. And after all this, after George's endless efforts to appease their every whim, even when their whims are directly contradictory, they still have the audacity to say George is the one talking nonsense.
excuse me. Excuse your damn self. No, excuse me. Let me speak, please.
You've been speaking and saying a whole bunch of bullshit.
And they applaud. They applaud as though he is their enemy. This man has conceded everything but his wife's bed to them. And the only reason he hasn't is because they haven't demanded it yet. The irony is he is as much their enemy now, after kissing their asses for a week straight, as he would have been if he had just had them arrested and expelled immediately. And the other irony? Professor Weinstein, the guy they want banished from their campus for imaginary thought crime, the wicked witch of manufactured racism, he's a self-described progressive.
And I assume you're no kind of right-winger. If you teach at Evergreen, I'm sure you're, a Hillary voter. But you had this
No, not a Hillary voter. I'm a deeply progressive person, and
okay.
I must say
there you go.
I'm troubled by what this implies about the current state of the left.
You yourself, you're a lefty. You liked and voted for Bernie, did you not?
I did like Bernie. I resonated with his message.
Concede to their every demand, vote Bernie, give yourself 10 lashes at the altar of social justice. It will never matter. This worldview rests upon creating an other by which to be oppressed, whether real or perceived. And because that state of oppression is a necessary constant, this worldview can never be appeased. You might eliminate one form of perceived oppression, or maybe even every form they can name, as George tried, but they will still substitute a new one to fill the role of the one you just eliminated. So do not try to appease. Call them on their bullshit, because they will hate you either way. So this is a long-form exhibit on what your college campus can become if you let this worldview go unchallenged. If you're a student and you care about the integrity of your institution, don't be afraid to challenge this behavior when you see it. If you're faculty and you care about the integrity of your institution, look at the support received by guys like Brett Weinstein and Jordan Peterson. You will be rewarded for your courage. If you're administration and you care about the integrity of your institution, stick up for the real student, the student who just wants to go to class with an open mind and learn. Stick up for that kid, not the kid who uses imaginary oppression to oppress others. Treat this behavior like a child's tantrum, because that's what it is. Don't reward bad behavior. Give it a timeout. The adults will thank you for it. And I will thank viewer NeoUnrealist, who gave me plenty of Twitter tips in assembling this probably way too long project. I have linked his channel atop the description if you'd like to check out some of his work. And to you, dear viewer, thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to come hang out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Okay, bye.